What's up, everybody? And welcome back to another week started and another week over already in the Karen Reed trial. But we're going to break down today the rest of Brian Higgins' testimony, cross-examination, and redirect, and really dig into the cell phone situation because it's very different than I initially thought based on the limited information limited by the judge in Brian Higgins' prior testimony. We're going to dig into that. We're also going to talk about the minor testimony that happened today that was off camera. You know, some of the discussion about whether or not it was allowed to be reported. Interesting. We'll discuss that. And then we'll also discuss the ER doctor, which was a very strange witness for me. I'm sure there'll be some questions on the extrapolation and that information. We're going to dig more into that tomorrow when we do part 2 so we can take our time with day 18 in the Karen Reed trial. So much going on, so much to talk about. Make sure you guys hit the thumbs up if you haven't already on the video and subscribe to our page because the schedules are getting a little crazy with these trials. I think Chad Daybell is going to end this week. I think we're going to get a verdict this week, maybe. Barely anything in Karen Reed as far as days of trial. Next week is another kind of weird schedule, but we're going to continue to produce content. I think we're going to do the video around 1:30 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. So make sure you guys have the reminder bell hit if you are subscribed to our channel so you don't miss out on that. And you can come for the live discussion of the extrapolation, the blood alcohol content. It's very interesting because we've tried a lot of DUI cases. I've tried a lot on this as a state attorney and as a defense attorney. I'm going to talk to some of my buddies that are still trying a ton of them. I don't try as many as I used to, but we've used extrapolation experts a bunch. And it's really interesting the way they're trying to use it in this trial is very different than most of the ways that we've used it in the past. So we will discuss that more tomorrow because today we are diving back in. It seems like it was days ago because direct and the first part of cross was, but David Yannetti finished the cross-examination of Brian Higgins today, and they really got into the text messages and the phone. I should say the phone more than the text messages because last week, before the first time we heard of the Brian Higgins cell phone stuff, they made it sound like it was within his rights and the order was denied and he was allowed to destroy his phone. That's kind of what I thought legally. I thought the defense was kind of twisting stuff, trying to make it seem like it was worse than it was, saying he deleted his cell phone or destroyed his cell phone, broke his SIM card, all that. We're going to get into all that today. I thought it was kind of the defense trying to make it look worse than it was potentially. But oh no, now that we got more information and more details, I actually think it could have gone the other way. And so we're going to listen to a big chunk of this testimony. And it's interesting that Yannetti finished cross. People were asking me why Jackson wasn't there today. Some of you in the chat may know. All I know is, or I believe, that this was planned. It wasn't like something bad happened. It wasn't like he quit the team. Nothing like that. This was planned for all intents and purposes that he wasn't going to do this. And I also heard that they had to okay it with Karen Reed that Yannetti was going to finish the cross today. And, it's her constitutional right to have her trial heard. And all these delays, that's also part of a right to a fair trial. And if jurors start dropping off or defense attorneys have to miss more days because they have other trials or other witnesses, it could create a problem where they are violating her right to a fair trial if they have to do this all over again or cause a mistrial because of all these delays. So we'll keep an eye on that. It also seems like the judge kind of knew the schedule was going to be a little wonky, but 6 to 8 weeks, I don't think is going to happen, especially if they're including jury selection in that 6 to 8 weeks, but we'll keep watching it. All right, we're going to jump right in at the beginning of cross, focusing on the destruction of the cell phone or the rehoming of it, depending on what you want to call it.
Yes. Sir, you provided to investigators what you claim were the complete text exchanges between yourself and Karen Reed and yourself and John O'Keefe, correct?
All right, I just want to start off with this because I literally never, ever, ever, ever would make fun of somebody for a speech impediment. It has nothing to do, and I didn't even notice that he had a speech impediment. I did listen to it on 2x speed. It has nothing to do with the way he spoke. It was the way he presented as a witness and the way he was trying to fill some gaps that we'll get to that I found weird or strange. Not the way he looked or the way he spoke. Never will that be something that happens on this channel.
What I provided was I let them know that it was a complete exchange between myself and the defendant. And I said that I may have had other text strings at other times with Mr. O'Keefe.
I'm going to proceed to ask you a series of questions which call for a yes or no answer. Can we agree that you'll answer yes or no to those questions?
If I can answer yes or no to the best of my ability, I will.
All right, I'm going to keep the question very simple, sir.
So I like how he did that. So some judges will not let you do that because a witness is allowed to explain their answers. So when I was at the state, or even sometimes as a plaintiff's personal injury lawyer, we do the prosecuting of the civil case. And I'll object and say, Judge, if he needs to explain his answer, he gets to explain his answer. Usually the most you can pin them down is the judge will make them say yes or no, and then their explanation. So they're not going all over the place, but they say yes and then explain, or no and then explain. No objection here. Bev didn't jump in. So Yannetti's locked him in. He's going to say yes or no to the best of his ability to these answers, which I think is great for the line of questioning he's about to go down.
You did not provide to investigators any other text messages between you and anyone else.
That's correct.
In September of 2022, you were served with a preservation order for your phone, were you not?
Yes.
After September of 2022, you never received anything in writing that canceled or lifted that preservation order, correct?
That's correct.
After September of 2022, you made the decision to dispose of your phone without consulting anybody about the decision to throw out your phone, correct?
Yes.
So those are some new details we just found out. Never did he get something in writing lifting something that he believed or that was ordered to preserve his phone. And he knew that. And nobody ever told him in writing that he could destroy his phone. And we got to remember, we're not dealing with Joe Schmo here, okay? We're dealing with a federal agent who I guarantee throughout his law enforcement career has had cases where very important information is found on cell phones. And they've done these Cellbrite downloads. And there have been issues that people have had to turn over their phones and have them downloaded and have them inspected. It is not like that was so far outside the realm of this guy's understanding. It's not like he's some farmer who only uses his phone to do a couple things and doesn't think it's that big of a deal and got a new phone, as evidenced by what he does to get rid of his phone. So the fact that he knew this case was going on, he knew that he was at the house, he knew that he was a potential witness, and he got rid of his phone without written authorization or permission to do so, is very different than how I felt last week. Last week, I thought he knew that the order had been denied to preserve his phone or to download his phone. And so therefore, it didn't really matter whether he got rid of it or not because there was nothing telling him to preserve it. But that's not what happened. Thank you, Jojo and Chris, for donating some memberships.
Before you threw the phone away, you did a factory reset of it, did you not?
No, I did not.
Well, you previously testified that you testified in another proceeding on June 1st, correct, of 2023?
Yes.
Prior to that June 1st testimony, you met with some people and gave a statement on May 5th of 2023, did you not?
I did meet with them. I don't know if that was the date.
Okay. It was prior to June, correct?
Yes.
All right. May 5th doesn't sound wildly inaccurate, does it?
No.
And when you met with those people on or about May 5th, we'll say, or whatever date it was prior to June 1st of 2023, you told them that you did a factory reset of your phone ending in 5421. Did you not?
I don't recall that. No, I don't recall making that statement.
You don't recall what you said about the factory reset during that interview, we'll call it, in May of 2023, correct?
That's correct.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Direct your attention to the first highlighted line there, sir.
Why don't you give him a second?
If you read that silently to yourself and look up at me when you're done.
I'm going to skip ahead as he reads.
Document, sir, does that refresh your memory about telling those people in May of 2023 that you did do a factory reset of your phone?
That's not accurate. I did not tell them that. And I also didn't tell them that I saved text with my father.
All right, so your testimony is that they got it wrong, correct?
My testimony is I didn't make those statements.
Your testimony is that they got it wrong, yes or no?
Objection.
16.
There's a lot of that in this case, too. A lot of that in this case. Kat in Virginia said, the judge explained to the jury at the beginning that Mr. Jackson had another commitment today and that he hadn't left the team. Correct. And they should not consider it at all, which is absolutely correct of the judge. Katie and a bunch of other people said his daughter was graduating. Congratulations, Mr. Jackson, and to your daughter. That's amazing. That's awesome. Definitely worth flying home for. It's hard to remember that these lawyers have real lives, right? Outside of this case, outside of this trial. And sometimes it's hard for clients to remember, for jurors to remember, and for people watching to always remember. And the way we talk about these lawyers and judges. I try to always remember real people, real lives, hard jobs, stressful jobs. So I hope he enjoyed the long weekend and graduation with his daughter. SC said, Peter, you're the GOAT YouTube lawyer, even though you and Idris Elba are my wife's hall passes. That's interesting. You don't have to worry about me. Idris Elba's a stud. I love Luther. Anyway, free Karen Reed, poops and dupes. People watcher, have you ever seen a prosecutor not call the lead investigator? No, I have not in any cases I've been involved with, but I'm sure it's happened before. Very rare and not a good look. Not a good look at all.
Well, in any case, you took the SIM card out of your phone, correct?
No, what I testified to was that
Did you take the SIM card out of your phone, yes or no?
I don't know.
Did you testify that that's what you do when you get rid of phones, sir?
What I said was that might have been the extent of it if I was to have done that.
And you either cut up the SIM card.
What a weird statement just that is. And that is what he keeps saying is, if I would have taken that out of my phone, I would have cut it or smashed it or destroyed it or whatever, right? That's what he says. If I would have, that's kind of my MO to do that with my SIM card. He also keeps trying to answer, I testified to this. And Yanetti's like, I'm not asking what you testified to. I'm asking what you did.
Or ripped it up, correct?
I believe what I testified to was
I'm
I
not
would
asking
have
you what you testified to. I'm asking you today, did you either cut up the SIM card or rip it up?
cut it up or broke it.
And so then he says, cut it up or broke it. So he's kind of getting him, to move it along and agree that, if he got rid of it, that's how he would have gotten rid of it. And Rebecca, I agree. There's a lot of side eye to how this case has kind of gone.
And you will agree with me that cutting up or breaking the SIM card destroys the SIM card, does it not?
The card itself, yes.
That would have been the purpose in terms of cutting it up or ripping it up, to destroy it, correct?
Well, so nobody else could use the phone.
Well, that was my next question.
Yeah, exactly. We're all on the same page. We know why somebody would destroy a SIM card. This is all in evidence now because it's not just lawyer questions. He's confirming that cutting up or smashing a SIM card would destroy it and would then render it unusable by anybody else.
Question. But,
In another phone.
But the purpose of cutting up or ripping up with the SIM card is to destroy the SIM card, is it not?
Yes.
And you wanted to make sure that somebody couldn't put that SIM card in their phone and potentially access your data, correct?
No, that wouldn't be the reason why.
Okay. Well, we already talked about the fact that you testified under oath on June 1st of 2023, correct?
Yes.
And you were under oath when you were testifying on June 1st of 2023, correct?
Yes.
You swore to tell the truth.
Yes.
You raised your right hand.
That's correct.
And June of 2023, June 1st of 2023 was about a year ago, correct?
Yes.
It was about a year closer to your throwing your phone away, correct?
Yes.
And in that testimony that you gave in June 1st of 2023, did you say the following, quote, I made sure that somebody couldn't put it in their phone?
Yes, I did say that.
In fact, by either cutting up or ripping up your SIM card, you also knew that that SIM card couldn't be put back in your phone either, correct?
Yeah, I believe that would be correct.
And you'll agree with me that you took that destroyed SIM card and put it in a trash bag, did you not?
I believe it went in a trash bag, yes.
Well, you used a passive voice. It went in a trash bag. Did it fly out of your hand unexpectedly into a trash bag, sir?
No, sir. It would have been disposed of with the phone.
No, I understand. But are you reluctant to say that you put it in a trash bag, sir?
Objection.
Can you answer that? Are you reluctant to say that?
No, Your Honor, I put it in a trash bag.
So he gets him to admit it. And again, you really don't want to push too much, especially if the answer is going to end up being yes. There's a witness later today that I thought was amazing at answering questions. And when the defense attorney would ask an obvious question that has to be yes, they didn't argue. They didn't quibble. They just said, yeah, if you changed all that, it would change my opinion. Because that's the answer. And it made him so much more credible to me. I said, can't tell if this is an I or a lowercase L. I'm going to go with uppercase I. The witness is a lot less nervous with his answers here. Does that help him, or does it look like he's been prepped extra after getting exposed? I don't really know if people feel like he got exposed or if they believed him. I feel like he's got a pretty similar disposition today. Maybe he doesn't like Alan Jackson. I don't know, but I didn't notice a big difference one way or the other.
Oh, with my
And
trash.
then you also took your phone now without the SIM card and you put that in the trash bag too, did you not?
Yes, sir.
Then you drove to a military base and you threw both the destroyed SIM card and the phone into a dumpster, did you not?
Well, I was cutting through the base, and I believe how I
Did you
testified
drive to
was
a military base, sir?
I was cutting through a base, yes.
Did you drive to it?
Yes, sir.
And then you put both the destroyed SIM card and the phone itself.
So somebody asked me to turn on subtitles. It's not working on their video, but I think you can turn it on mine. If you hit CC at the bottom of the video you're watching right now, because the one I'm using to stream, it's not working, Nicole. All right, keep listening.
Which were in a trash bag into a dumpster on that military base, did you not?
I believe that's what I did, yes.
And as you were driving away, you knew that that destroyed SIM card and the phone would be gone forever, correct?
Yes, I threw it away.
And before you drove away, you did not transfer anything from your old phone to the new phone, correct?
That's correct.
You lost all of your photos on that phone, did you not?
Whatever photos I had on there, I did, yes.
You lost all your videos on that phone, did you not?
To the extent if I had any.
You lost all of your other text messages besides the ones that you had with Karen Reed and John O'Keefe, correct?
That's correct.
And you knew that you did have text messages on that old phone with Kevin Albert.
He's a friend, most likely.
You also had text messages on your phone with Nicole Albert.
Most likely, yes.
And you had text messages on your phone with Brian Albert.
Yes.
It was important to you that no one see those text exchanges that you had with those three members of the Albert family.
Objection.
I'll let him have it.
No, sir, that's not true.
You took no steps to preserve those text messages, did you?
That's correct.
You did not ask your friend Matt Kelch, the agent, to help you extract those text messages, did you?
That's correct.
And when you went to that machine, you did not extract them yourself, did you?
He walked me through it. I did do the extraction.
You did not extract the three strands of text messages with Nicole Albert, Kevin Albert, and Brian Albert to preserve from that machine, did you not?
No, I did not extract those.
So the only place you knew they existed was on your old phone, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
The same phone that you put into a dumpster on a military base with a SIM card removed from the phone and destroyed, correct?
Well, I did throw the SIM card and the phone on the military base.
Right, and the SIM card was destroyed. You've already testified to
I
that.
said to the extent of if I did that, I would have done that.
And we're talking about the actual phone that would have had your text messages, again, with Brian, Nicole, and Kevin Albert, correct?
Yes, because the motion was denied.
Well, you
See, so there we go. He tries to slip in there again that the motion is denied. Okay. And again, that's what made me think, oh, then what's the big deal, defense? Why are you making it like this is a big deal? If the motion was denied, it didn't matter what he did with his phone. But wait.
already testified, sir, earlier, Kevin Albert, correct?
Yes, because the motion was denied.
Well, you've already testified, sir, earlier that you never received anything in writing that either canceled or lifted the initial preservation order, correct?
That is correct.
You knew when you were throwing that phone and the destroyed SIM card in the dumpster that from that day forward, no one would ever be able to access the content of what you and Brian Albert had discussed by text messages on your old phone, correct?
Anybody.
I'm not further.
Ms. Lally?
So while the order was denied, he never actually knew that. It was never sent to him in writing and confirmed, and he still got rid of his phone and destroyed it. To me, and even him slipping in or throwing in that order was denied multiple times makes it seem like he was going to get rid of it as soon as he felt like he could. And the way he got rid of it was to make sure that nobody would be able to use that again, and nobody would be able to get the information with those three text chains and everybody else. All right, we're going to get to redirect here, but first, Joseph said, will the defense call Proctor? And how do they handle it without Cross? Do they just attack him on direct? So to answer the second question first, if they were to call him, they could treat him as a hostile witness, basically lead him and cross-examine him first during direct, basically. Okay. So they don't have to worry about that because you can treat him as an adverse or hostile witness. Obviously he is if he's the lead investigator. But what's more interesting is the state would be able to cross-examine him. They would be able to lead him down the path that they would want him to go. And it's always dangerous, no matter how bad you think a witness for the other side is. If you call him, he's definitely going to bring at least some good stuff for the other side. And when the state has him up, he's going to confirm all their theories, connect dots, hopefully, I would assume, if he's their lead investigator. But if you feel like you can really crush him and really do a good job, it may be worth it. You just have to balance that. Because another argument you're giving up is, and it's a really good argument in closing argument, in my opinion, and you guys let me know what you think would be more helpful to the defense. Being able to call Proctor, say he looked at nude photos or looked for nude photos, whatever, all the stuff they can say, Proctor got this wrong, got that wrong, he knew everybody, because everything except for, looking for the naked photos or whatever is in evidence through other witnesses. And the defense is not going to get in trouble for saying that in opening because he's the lead investigator. They had a good faith and good reason to believe the state was going to call him. If they choose not to call him, no big deal. They're not going to be able to argue that again in closing unless they get it in through another witness. But what they can argue is reasonable doubt can come from the evidence, inconsistencies in the evidence, or lack of evidence. And guess what? They did not even call Proctor to the stand. And without the lead investigator, that is such a huge lack of evidence that alone is reasonable doubt. They can make arguments like that in closing if the state doesn't call him. But if they call him and the state gets across him, it's harder to say, well, the state didn't call him, so we had to. And if they do, the state can say, we knew they were going to call him. And then, he testified to everything and cross-examination, and there's some trial strategy to this and whatever. If they're going to get into that the state as a strategy didn't call him, then the state should be able to respond with arguments in kind. So there's a lot of strategy in trial, a lot of strategy. And I don't know the answer because I don't know everything they have on Proctor. I know some of it, and I know he already kind of looks bad. So maybe don't call him, and the jury thinks kind of what I think has come out through the witnesses. It's like, this guy seems to have a conflict of interest, and he seems to have not done the best job, and he didn't talk to these people, and he probably shouldn't have talked to those people. And, there's already some of that out there in evidence. Tay Marie, lawyer, So what do you think BH actually did that makes him guilty of what? Are you saying he is a suspect in John O'Keefe's death? No. Okay. So to make this clear, I am not saying anybody's a suspect in John O'Keefe's death. What I'm saying is there is so much shady, weird stuff going on the prosecutor and the Commonwealth side that throwing out the defense's theory of somebody else did this, because I don't think they've proven that. Maybe there's more to come. Obviously, the defense has a case in chief where they can put on evidence of that. But what they have shown so far is there are major holes in this investigation. There are witnesses that seem to have a vested interest in this and seem to have a vested interest in protecting themselves and other people. And law enforcement did not do a thorough investigation, a proper investigation. They didn't follow proper protocols and procedures. And it's really hard for me to come to a guilty verdict on somebody when we have all that mess on the prosecutor side, because I hold them to their burden. They have the highest burden in the land beyond a reasonable doubt, and they are falling far short of that right now. That doesn't mean they won't end up proving it. People are saying I'm like stringing people along or something in these videos. I'm not stringing anybody along. That's what I believe. And I will give the prosecution the entire case to prove their case, because that's how it works. They have the totality of the evidence to prove their case. So far, in my opinion, they have not yet. Dana, Peter, is it possible that the defense will reveal phone data that shows when John arrived at the Alberts and if and when Karen dropped off John? Also, the whereabouts of all the people involved to get an accurate timeline. Dana, ask me if something's possible. I'll pretty much always say yes, it's possible, because I don't know. I don't have all the evidence in this case. I haven't seen it all. I don't know what the prosecutors have. I don't know what the defense has. So it's possible they have tons of stuff we haven't seen yet. And that's why we're going to watch and kind of find out where it goes. Ginger said he's either corrupt or incompetent obstruction. I mean, and again, I don't know all these motions and hearings that happened where it ended up getting denied. So it wouldn't be obstruction if it got denied, but it feels maybe a little corrupt or incompetent. It does feel a little bit like that. But again, we don't know the ins and outs, or I should say because I know a lot of you do and watched all of that, of the judicial decisions that were made pre-trial. Warsaw. I definitely hear that this does not look good. And I think this is what the jury is hearing from the defense, is exactly your comment. All right. So then on redirect, they start out by talking about, the defendant initiated text with you. No doubt about that. Karen Reed kind of started it. Karen Reed kissed him, asking about the phone records, letting Higgins deny that there's anything else, that would make him look bad or guilty or like a cover up in there. They talk about the key card access, 4,500 entries. A couple of them are him. Not really sure what the point of that was. But then they get into the phone preservation again, this time with the prosecutor. And I find this very fascinating, interesting that they're getting into pre-trial motions and orders in the testimony of this witness.
I'll start with respect to your phone. You were provided notification in regard to a preservation order in regard to your phone sometime in September of 2022, correct?
I received a subpoena on September 30th, 2022.
And that was in regard to a hearing in which counsel for the defendant was seeking your physical phone as evidence, correct?
Yes.
And is it your understanding, or were you informed after that date, sometime in early October?
The defense was seeking your phone as physical evidence. So we're really getting into stuff that's based on judges' orders that a lot of times doesn't come in. It doesn't matter if the defense was trying to get this and it was denied, if he destroyed it before he ever knew it was denied. That's the relevant part. Consciousness of guilt, the defense said. You ever heard of consciousness of guilt?
October of 2022 that motion had been denied.
So I believe it was October 21st of that year, I was made aware that that was denied on actually October 5th.
Are you aware of a 30-day period by which a defendant has to file some sort of notice of appeal with a motion?
Objection.
I'll allow that.
Like, that's a horror. You should never allow that. Do you know what the appellate rules are on a defendant being able to appeal an order like that? It's like, what? And he's going to try to answer, but I give him credit. He didn't try to act like he really knew. He's just like, yeah, I know they can appeal stuff like that, but that's a legal question. This guy has no background and it's totally outside the scope of his knowledge about the appellate rules for lawyers when they lose a motion.
I know typically there's appeal periods. In this particular sense, I wasn't familiar with the preservation order itself. What a preservation order was with respects to, that was kind of all new to me. Usually in an investigation that I'm conducting, it's a search warrant, I take the phone. I don't ask people to preserve it through a court order, if that makes sense.
And so when was it that you disposed of your phone?
It was about 2 months after that,
And why was it that you disposed of your phone?
because it was beaten, it was broken up, and I had already had a new phone, and only explanation is I threw it away. That's it.
Now, beyond sort of this case, what, if anything else, was going on with reference to your personal phone that led you to want to get rid of it?
So in July of 2022, I had a target of an investigation.
Hold on here. I'm going to back it up so we can listen to this question again, because this is really important. And for a second, I was like, that's a good reason. You should have led with that, Commonwealth, because I was kind of starting to think if federal agent, he did some undercover stuff. So I'm going to listen to the question again, because they quibble about this later.
If anything else was going on.
That's it.
Now, beyond sort of this case, what, if anything else, was going on with reference to your personal phone that led you to want to get rid of it?
So what was going on with regards to your personal phone that led you to wanting to get rid of it? And this is his answer, to wanting to get rid of the phone. That's important. I'm going to write it down. Wanting to get rid of it. Personal phone, okay? Because we're going to come back to this later on Recross, I think, or maybe later in Redirect.
So in July of 2022, I had a target of an investigation I was working who alleged that he called me on my personal cell phone. And when I questioned him as to the fact how he obtained my personal telephone number, he told me that his girlfriend had obtained it off of open source internet, which I later confirmed that number was out there.
What, if any, concerns did that raise for you, sir?
Well, I had a lot of concerns. And so July of 22 is when I probably started thinking about, you know what, I got to get rid of the telephone number itself.
And a lot of the work that you were doing, at least at that time, was undercover work. Is that correct?
Before
There, he finally says, July is when I started thinking I got to get rid of the telephone number itself. So not the phone there, but now we're talking telephone number, but that wasn't the question from Lally.
this case right here, yes.
Now, as far as the SIM card that you're talking about, do you have any specific memory of doing anything with that SIM card?
No, and that's how I testified in that other hearing, that to the extent of what I would have done is I would have cut it up or broke it. And the concern would be that to my understanding, that's not holding any photos, that's not holding videos, that's not holding my contacts, it's holding phone information itself.
And as far as photos or videos or what, if anything like that, did you even have?
I didn't have much in the sense that I'm divorced, I don't have kids, I didn't have the typical memories that somebody would have had on their phone that they wanted to preserve. They were more like the text messages with the defendant, where it would be a drink glass at a bar, food, something along those lines. I had more of a connection to my work phone and more of a value to my work phone than I did my personal phone.
Now, as far as that military base down.
Basically, the whole answer there, in case it was too convoluted and how he was, until he was, going on into talking about something else, was basically a target in another investigation, and he works undercover sometimes, got his phone number personally in July. And so that was another reason why he wanted to get rid of it, meaning his old personal phone was the question from Lally, and change his number, he said, in July of 2022. So that was his answer. But wait till we get to Recross. Wait till we get to Recross. Okay? Rebecca said, or is the defense thinking that the jury will intimate what not putting Proctor is all about? Right. That's the strategic decision they have to make, Rebecca.
Okay. How often, let me ask you this, when you lived at the residence in Barnstable County, what would you do with your trash now?
Well, if I was going through and I had trash or some recycling, and I was either getting gas on the base or hitting the duty free, I would occasionally toss a bag of trash in one of the dumpsters there. Or if I forgot, I would throw it out when I got back to my other property. And at the time, at one point, I was living in Canton, and I had the house there, and then I sold it, and then I had the in-law I was renting, so I had other options to throw things away.
So to me, this is kind of funny because you guys will, I know there's going to be people annoyed at me for this, but when he said this, so I have a bunch of family members and friends that are military, and they do the weirdest stuff on base. They go on base to the weirdest stuff for me as civilian, and like free dumpsters to throw away trash. Like I could see that. Also, it seems weird that you would throw a trash bag into your car and drive it somewhere. So I can kind of see, both stuff for that, where you can make it look really bad that you threw something away on a military base. It could also look really, it's like you had to go to the military base to buy that, but it's like friends and family of mine go on there to buy stuff in the duty-free store all the time. So I don't know. I don't know. It's weird. I don't know how to answer it, but at first I was like, oh, maybe that's not that big of a deal, but it definitely sounds bad when the defense talks about it.
Do you have trash pickup at your residence in Barnstable?
No,
So if you were to throw away anything, any sort of trash, it would have to be either at the base or at one of your other homes.
it would be somewhere else.
So he does that with every trash bag. That's where I got harder to believe. Maybe like big items that you need a dumpster, but I don't know. I'm trying to see it both ways. Okay. That's what I always try to do. I'm trying to be like, does that make sense? Let's think about if that makes sense.
And so with reference to the phone and the SIM card, if you even did you drive specifically to the base to throw your phone away, or were you throwing it away with other trash?
It was just with other trash.
Everybody's like, buy stuff? Yes. Throw stuff away? No. I'm just trying. Okay.
You were shown some call logs or some toll records or something to that effect last Friday with respect to calls that you had made or received around January 29, 2022. Was that correct?
Yes.
And was that anything that you had specifically preserved and given to the troopers, or that was something that someone was able to obtain even without your phone or without your SIM card, correct?
That's correct.
Hey, folks, just retreat now.
Yes.
1 moment, Charlie.
Yes.
Well, sir, going back to January 29th, pulling away from the residence on Fairview Road, you didn't see anything on the side of the road, is that correct?
Absolutely not. No.
And what is it that you would have done had you seen anything, or had you seen Mr. O'Keefe on the side of the road?
So this is great too. The Commonwealth thinks they're like crushing with these questions, but a lot of them have backfired. And I think this one backfires too. And tell me why in the chat. Okay. So the answer to this question, what would you have done if you would have seen John O'Keefe in the yard? And when he gives his answers, tell me why I think it backfires based on some other questions and things the defense has been pointing out throughout the trial.
On January 29th.
I've spent my whole life between being a firefighter, working in the profession that I work now, being a tactical medic. If I had saw John O'Keefe on the side of the road, I would have done something.
Yannetti almost objected. Did you see him? This is the posture of a lawyer when they're about to stand up to object. I'm going to back it up, and you can see he's literally almost objects, but let him get the answer out, because this answer I think is actually good for the defense.
And what is it that you would have done had you seen anything, or had you seen Mr. O'Keefe on the side of the road on January 29th?
I've spent my whole life between being a firefighter, working in the profession that I work now, being a tactical medic. If I had saw John O'Keefe on the side of the road, I would have done something to make a difference.
Another question.
As a paramedic, firefighter, whatever he said, save lives, it's my job. If I would have seen him, or I would have known he was in the yard, I would have done something to help. Now, I know people are going to want to pick apart that he didn't say save his life, or he said something or whatever. But you know where my mind went? Is, yeah, you're right. You know who didn't? Somebody else with first responders training. Somebody else who knew John O'Keefe was on his lawn, who didn't go out and didn't do anything. And that's a question the defense has asked to so many witnesses about Brian Albert. Inside the house, first responder. And he never came out. He never did anything. And he knew John O'Keefe was on his lawn. Even if it was late, you would think you'd run out and try to help him. So I thought that was a miss. And if I was defense, I would write that down. That's something I'd connect in closing too. Rebecca, thank you so much for gifting some more memberships. Everybody hit the like button if you guys haven't already. We got 10,000 in the chat already. So let's hit that. Let's get to 10,000 likes. 10,000 likes tonight. We can do it. Yeah, I think that is a credible answer. I think that's the right answer. If you can help, you should do something. You should do something. Sinbad said, will you tell us your opinion after the Commonwealth rest, please? Yes, for sure. For sure. Kate O'Brien, if they have something concrete, text, actual evidence that was suppressed, photos or something that buries him, call him. If it's on what's already been testified to, argue it. Okay, we're talking about Proctor here. Okay. Boo-boo. Peter, seriously, I have a drawer full of old phones. Who throws phones away? That's not a normal thing to do. Loving your coverage. So the only thing I've ever done is I have a bunch of my old phones too. My daughter like pretends like one is a phone. It's like the iPhone 2. It doesn't even work. But I've traded phones in, right? Where you give them back to the store and they give me a $200 off my next phone or whatever, but I've never thrown one away either. It's kind of cool to have all the old phones. Tim Harris, prior to having one's laundry hung out to dry in public, who wouldn't ditch his phone, whether guilty, innocent, or indifferent? Why would you think your private life was going to be hung out to dry in public? I wouldn't think that if I just like witnessed a crime, or especially if I left the house before a crime was committed. I would not think that it would be hung out to dry publicly. There are legal protections in place that would never happen. So I don't know. I mean, I think there are different ways to look at this. Joe B, I don't know who did what, but two people involved in the case getting rid of their phones the same day with excuses that don't hold water, shenanigans, and right before important court documents came out. David said it's against military regulations to bring trash from off base to throw away. Okay. EFAS, a friend and I once got in trouble for throwing away trash on a base we didn't live on, left ours and forgot to stop. Apparently that's not allowed. Interesting. Maybe they'll call somebody that can testify to that. All right. Let's listen to this recross here by Yannetti.
Feel free to stand.
Sir, you testified that a prime motivator of you to get rid of your phone was a July 22nd call from a target of an investigation that you were working on.
I never said it was a prime motivator.
Was it a prime motivator?
No, what I testified to was that the phone number was what I was concerned about primarily.
Right.
So that's where it came up. The phone number. It's like, yeah, you said phone number, but Lally's question was getting rid of the phone. So which is it? And I think it's a good distinction and point to bring up by Yannetti. Because like you guys said, of course, that's the reason you got rid of it. And it's like, oh no, it's actually not the reason you got rid of your personal phone you're testifying to now. So the only thing we're back left with, if we're the jury, is you got rid of it because of this case, not because of your, undercover work or whatever, which again, I thought was a really great answer. And if that was the real reason, the Commonwealth should have led with that. Now I know why they didn't lead with that.
Didn't have anything to do with the phone.
Oh, you did not change your phone number on July 22nd, correct?
July of 2022? Is that what you mean?
The date that you received a call, supposedly, from a target of an investigation you were working on was July 22nd of which year?
So I believe it was July 25th of 2022. I was so concerned that I reported it to my supervisor.
Right, but you did not change your phone number after that for quite a while, correct?
I believe it was September.
Okay. So for those months, you kept the same phone number and kept the same phone, correct?
I did.
And September happened to be the month that you received the preservation order from this court, correct?
September 22, yes.
Right.
That timeline sure looks good for the defense. It could be a coincidence. It absolutely could be a coincidence. But it sure looks good for the defense that this other thing happened in July. Well, did you get rid of it or change your number in July? No. Not till September. Oh, and what happened in September? The preservation order.
Now, with regard to the text exchanges that you had with Karen Reed, you testified that you were embarrassed about them?
Well, I wasn't proud of them.
I think your word was embarrassed, correct?
I can agree to that. That's fair.
Well, you already testified to that, right?
I believe that might
5
have
minutes ago?
been a word I used, yes.
And you also explained that you would keep things like that to yourself, correct?
That could be something, yes.
However, you would also agree with me that while they were going on, you told your boss about that text exchange, correct?
Well, I told her about the kiss.
Do you deny telling your boss about the texting that you were doing with Karen Reed?
I don't know if I specifically recall that. No,
But you don't deny it, sir, correct?
it's possible that I told her about that. I'm not going to deny it.
All right. And in any case, those text exchanges were preserved. You preserved those before disposing of your phone, correct?
Correct.
And with regard to the other text exchanges that you did not preserve with the Alberts, including Brian Albert, are you familiar with the term consciousness of guilt, Mr. Higgins?
Objection, Your Honor.
The objection system.
I may have a moment.
It's a good question. Again, sometimes lawyers don't even care to hear the answer. They don't care if they get objected to. They want the jury to hear the question. Technically, probably inappropriate, but the judges let some stuff slide, especially for the Commonwealth.
Yes.
With regard to, just one more thing. With regard to the date that you changed phone numbers on your phone, you would agree with me that was September 29th of 2022?
When I actually changed the phone number?
That's what I just asked.
Yeah, yes, I also got a new phone. Yes.
Okay. September 29th of 2022, you changed your phone number and got a new phone. And then September 30th, the next day, you were served with the preservation order, correct?
I got the preservation order on the 30th. That's correct.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Higgins, you are.
Confirming that timeline, locking it in. Did somebody tip them off? The defense has done a good job. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody's kind of connected. Did somebody tip them off to where they could get rid of the phone just in the nick of time? Ashley, Peter, do you think the defense has Proctor's friends' messages? Will they call them to the stand? Honestly, I don't know. I don't know who has what, right? I don't know what's on first, who's on second. I'm learning it as it's coming out in this case. And there's a lot of twists and turns. We finally started hearing some DUI evidence today, so we'll kind of see how that goes. But I don't know what they have. I don't know what they're holding. I don't know what's coming next. All right. So next, we get to the child witness portion of the case. Before we get there, let me answer a couple of these questions. Lenova, what do you think Yannetti wanted to object to when Higgins said about he was a first responder, would have done something, etc.? Either just objection, it's irrelevant, speculation. He doesn't want the jury to hear, what great people all these witnesses are and how much they would have helped. But I think he realized maybe this is going to be good for us. And so he let him end up answering the questions. There was a couple of potential reasons for objecting. Rebecca, what undercover officer uses their personal phone number? So he said that the person's girlfriend found it on open source internet. So I don't know if it was posted somewhere else, but she found it and that's how they got it. It's not like he was giving it out. Linda said, do you think either attorney or their staff watch YouTube to evaluate public opinion and possibly listen to the impact of attorneys like you, EDB, Runkle, et cetera? Probably not me. Maybe EDB or, some of the people, the huge channels or people like, streaming it every day. I don't know. I know in other cases it has happened. And if it were me, I would, or I'd at least have somebody, an associate or paralegal back at the office, maybe watching it, maybe live, or maybe watching recaps and things like that. If anybody is watching stuff like this, if they're not watching it live and the lawyer's watching it at night, I doubt it because there's so much work to do. Maybe when they have this week off, but I'm sure they're also handling their other cases. I would be watching it. I would be looking at the chat. I would be seeing what people are saying. You don't take everything, obviously. You don't really care about the criticisms about people saying certain things about you, but you can learn kind of what the pulse is of the public. And I think that can be really important. And I know that it's helped lawyers in other cases. Leah M said, grown adults here. This is wild. Totally wild. By the way, my voice is a little bit gone because at our Memorial Day party, we had a huge two-man doubles ping pong tournament. How do you guys play doubles ping pong? Let me know the rules because I had some people complaining about our house rules. But me and Lucas, who you guys for the members only know, is also my pickleball partner. We took the cake. We beat everybody undefeated. Actually, we lost one game, but they were all 3-game series. But we won one series 2-1, and we took home the prize. BC, BH wasn't worried. That's why my voice is gone. I tend to yell when I play games. BH wasn't worried about his personal life being exposed by phone. I think BH and BA had work things to hide, not just around this case. Clearly, he used federal equipment and dumped trash on federal property, not a rule follower. So you think just he didn't want anybody looking at it for any reason because there were going to be other illegal things on it? Possible. I have no evidence of that, so I don't really know. Azam, I still keep my ancient Nokia 3310. Was that like the brick? Because those never broke. Those batteries were as good the day I stopped using them, playing Snake for hours, as the day I got it. And it was so cool how you could change the exterior shell of it. Yobi, sup? Mary Claire, pardon my ignorance. Even if the phone / SIM are destroyed, can't data still be extracted from the cloud? If it was saved on the cloud, I believe it could. Lally asked if something they got was still able to be retrieved even without that. So I don't, honestly, here's the point. And we'll talk about this with the medicine and the DUI and the retrograde extrapolation. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not an expert. I know what other experts and other doctors testify to. Who are they going to have come and call and show how bad that was? Because if neither side does, the jury is left with their common sense. And with common sense, it looks really bad to change your phone number, destroy your SIM card, throw it away in different trash cans on an army base. That looks pretty bad, common sense wise. To somebody who has nothing to hide, who's just a witness and left the house before anything bad even happened. Just read that Trooper Proctor will not testify. What are your thoughts on that? I don't think that's been confirmed, Michelle. I could be wrong. I would be surprised. It's definitely not a good look for the Commonwealth. And then the defense has a decision to make. Will they call him, try to tear him apart in their case in chief, or just say, look, they didn't even call the lead investigator. That's how bad this investigation was. Reasonable doubt. Lack of evidence. Conflicting evidence. Can you really trust it? They don't even trust it. That's what I would say. Can you guys trust Proctor's work? Because he was the lead investigator that put all this together, did all these interviews, did the reports. Can you trust his work if the Commonwealth doesn't trust him? They don't trust his work enough to call him as a witness. Some judges are not allow you to argue that. I think it's a totally appropriate argument. They have the burden of proof. They did the investigator. That's what we're left with. Okay, so let's talk about the minor children for a second. There was an order that it wouldn't be streamed. Information about what they had testified to prior shouldn't go out and be reported. So what I'm going to do in an abundance of caution, I am not going to go through their specific testimony. I read some reports and some people saying what they said. Generally speaking, if you want to know the content of the evidence that came out, it was just about, and again, this could all just be guesses about what would you ask the minor children about if you were the state or the defense. And, you'd ask them probably about what the relationship looked like to them. And if they were good for the state, they probably said they argued a lot. They fought a lot. Started out good, got bad. Maybe they talked about how Karen was that night. Did she seem drunk? Did she seem like she was on drugs, erratic? Because John O'Keefe's niece was in the house, potentially saw Karen. We know that she talked to her at some point in the morning. So maybe some explanation of what they saw there. They weren't up on the stand for terribly long. And so I don't think it was a long, laborious direct. My guess is it was bad for Karen personally. It's not going to make the jury like Karen, but obviously they had nothing to testify to about what happened the night of January 28th or the morning of January 29th. So it was more just relational background, maybe some motive testimony, not what actually happened that night to prove a crime was committed based on the elements and the fact of the crimes charged. Now, what I did hear, and what I will say, because this is not something that the minors testified to, I read multiple reports that all Yannetti said was something like, I'm sorry you were forced to come here today. That's what I heard Yannetti said on Cross, if you want to call it that. Some people thinking it was unfair that the minors were not live streamed. I think it's totally appropriate. I think it's the right call. I think it's what we should do. I think we should protect minors at all costs, especially these kids. They are victims, no doubt, multiple times over. I really hope and pray that they are strong and they persevere, and they have been through so much that I hope that they're able to use that and turn it into being people that really make a difference and a change in the world and help other people that deal with difficult situations. Because it's brutal what these kids have been through. And that's exactly what it's supposed to be. You're not going to hear me argue about a judge or a judicial system trying to protect the minors' identities, what they're talking about, what they say, where they live, who they are, what they like, what they don't like, especially in a case like this where everybody seems to be catching strays. I got no dog in the fight. I'm just watching it. And people from both sides are saying, oh, he refuses to even try. It's so obvious. And he's just stringing people along. And then on the other side, you're not holding the defense attorneys accountable. They're violating all the rules of ethics. And therefore you're unethical and you shouldn't be a lawyer because you're not calling out these things. And it's just like, I'll worry about me and I think about me. And I just about everything I say, I think about, and I try to do the right thing, say the right thing, act the right way, be appropriate and ethical and morally correct. And I try to treat other people how I want to be treated. And all of that goes through my filter before it comes out here. And so I'm not doing something I know is ethically wrong, or not calling out something I know is ethically wrong or unjust. If I see it, I'll call it. That's how I always have been. That's how I always will be. There are cases that I really think are going to be tough for the defense to even make an argument on. Sometimes most of the time they're right if it's kind of a slam dunk case. But I'll still try to keep an open mind and see what the state proves and see what the defense pokes holes in and what happens in the case. I try to look at it the way that we beg jurors to look at it when I try cases. So again, I'm trying to treat these cases like I want the juries in my case to treat my cases in my trials. Sorry for that side note, because a lot of you probably don't care about that. And a lot of you are probably not the problem. So then we get to the Dr. Rice, the ER physician. John O'Keefe shows up 6:47-ish, unresponsive with a breathing tube, hypothermia, scratches on his arm, also treated Karen Reed, self-harm stuff that night. And then on cross, I mean, it was fine on direct. It wasn't great, but it was whatever. They got what they wanted to get in, I guess. But on cross, he starts arguing that he didn't write the note for Karen's care. And then when offered to refresh his recollection, it was kind of like, oh, yeah, I did. And I thought that was kind of weird. I thought that was kind of weird. So we're going to listen to some of that exchange.
Would it refresh your recollection to take the report?
Treated her.
Testified that you treated Ms. Reed when she arrived at the hospital on January 29th, correct?
I don't know if I testified that I treated her, but I was involved in her care. Yes,
You actually wrote the reports regarding her care, correct?
that is not correct.
Would it refresh your recollection to take the report?
The report, I believe we're talking about the note, the emergency room note was written by a nurse practitioner.
Would it refresh your recollection to take a look at some additional reports from January 29th?
Sounds like you want to show me some reports, so sure.
That's a weird exchange. Like, hey, I didn't write that report. That's incorrect. Okay. Do you want to look at it to refresh your recollection? No, she's being very polite because she could be like, yeah, you did. You sure about that? I feel like Jackson or Yannetti would have been like, are you sure about that? Are you as sure about that as anything else you're going to testify to in this case, sir, that you didn't write this report? Because you remember writing a report, right? You write a lot of reports, but you wouldn't just forget about a report that you wrote, would you? Especially when you knew you were coming to testify at trial. You probably reviewed something, right? She could have been a much bigger jerk about this. And I might have been, I don't know if I call it a jerk. I might have been a little harsher with him if he was being kind of giving me pushback like I'm lying or something. And then he says something like, sounds like you want me to read this report, so I guess I will. It's like, I just want to make sure we have accurate testimony here today, sir. That's probably what I would have said. And I think we need you to read your report so we can get some accurate testimony. That may have drawn an objection, but Yannetti's smiling. He loves it.
May I approach? Yes.
And now he reads it.
Is your recollection refreshed? Do you recall treating Ms. Reed on January 29th?
I do not.
Do you recall writing a report that has your name, Justin Rice, on it from January 29th?
No, it depends what you define report as. It's the best answer. Do I recall writing this up? No. Is that what your question was?
So is it your testimony that do you recall treating Ms. Reed at all?
No, I don't.
Do you recall actually ordering her blood in this case?
No.
Do you recall sending it out to the labs at all?
No.
As you sit here today, you don't know.
Which is fine. And Amanda, that's fine if he doesn't want to be here. Usually doctors in these situations don't want to be here. We call them in car accident cases. They don't want to be here either. I get it. But it was weird how he was like pushing with her and not just answering her questions or saying like, I don't know. Do you want to read your report to refresh your recollection? Sure, that would be helpful. Thank you. Because I have no recollection of what, as opposed to like, no, I did not. That's incorrect. My PA wrote the note. It's like, no, sir, they didn't.
Who collected the blood?
That's correct.
You don't know who packaged the blood?
That would also be a fair assessment, yes.
And you don't know who submitted that to the lab?
Correct.
And it wasn't you, correct?
I can confidently say that I did not collect blood work. I did not do that.
Okay.
And if he didn't write it, if the PA wrote it and he just signed it, just say that. Say, it's normal for me to just sign the bottom, and even if I don't write the report, and that's fine. It was just his demeanor to me towards this lawyer. I was like, that's just weird. I didn't expect this guy to be like in the bag for the Commonwealth. And I don't think he was. He wasn't the type of witness on direct that felt like he was in the bag. That's why this was just so weird to me during his cross.
You testified that you treated Mr. O'Keefe upon arrival on January 29th, correct?
Yes.
Did a firefighter ever approach you on the morning of January 29th and tell you that he had information suggesting that the victim had been struck by a vehicle?
Objection.
Do you remember that?
I do not.
So if a firefighter indicated that he informed you that he had information suggesting that Mr. O'Keefe had been in some sort of vehicular accident, that's something that you would have included in your report, correct?
I don't know if that's a fair assumption.
But as you sit here today, you have no recollection whatsoever of anyone telling you that the victim had appeared to be in some sort of car accident, correct?
Well, I think, I don't have it in front of me, but I think my note that I prepared for Mr. O'Keefe states that per EMS.
Dr. Rice, you have no record. Apologies.
So I don't think he finished his answer.
So I think that what I was trying to say, right, was that on my note it says per EMS report. So one of the medics, as in one of the folks on the ambulance who brought Mr. O'Keefe in, again, I'm not right in front of my note, but as I recall, it said something to the effect of per EMS report, the patient may have been struck by a vehicle.
No, it doesn't, sir. No, it doesn't. And once again, yeah. Addie, same. I was thinking the same thing. It's like, why? How do you remember this? Why are you forcing this statement out? Because your MO seems to me, and it's fine. I don't blame a witness for this. He's got no dog in this fight. He just happened to be working the night John O'Keefe showed up. Okay. If this guy would have said, I don't remember a thing, I wouldn't have blamed him. Because that's a lot of doctors, especially ER doctors. Lots of reports. I don't remember. I have no clue. It's when he started to push back and force things as if he had a crystal clear memory, especially important things like this. No, actually, I'm going to interrupt you, ma'am. And you're wrong about that. I think I did say per EMS, he may have been struck by a vehicle, because obviously that would be medically important, especially if we're trying to, put together a causation, right? And we're trying to have a clinical correlation to figure out what caused these injuries. And it could help us treat him if we know it's blunt force trauma versus just sitting outside and dying of hypothermia. That's important medically. And so he says it. He says he thinks it's in the report. Let's see if he's right.
Can I show you a copy of that report?
Please.
Karen Reed knows. Exactly. That wouldn't bother me at all if he just said, I don't remember, right? Which he's already said 1,000 times. So nobody would think it was weird. He's not a paid expert. He's not a law enforcement officer. He's not investigating. He's not trying to catch a criminal. He's not trying to get justice. He just treated a guy that showed up at the ER and it was a horrible, tragic accident. Or it was a crime, but it was a tragedy what happened to the O'Keefe family.
All right. So,
I'll ask a question. Is your recollection fresh?
yes.
Is there anywhere on that report that says that the patient came in and there was a statement by EMS that the victim appeared to have been struck by a vehicle?
Just give me a moment to read through the. So no, there's not.
In fact, there's no mention of a vehicle whatsoever, correct?
That's correct.
There's no mention of a vehicle everywhere after this doctor, who's obviously bright, right? I mean, I just assume most doctors are bright, and I always want the best and brightest to become doctors, because if my life is in their hands, I would like for them to be the smartest, most capable people on the planet. So I just assumed, and all the doctors I know are generally smart people, smarter than your average. So he read through it. He didn't see a mention of that anywhere. Anywhere.
Dr. Rice, did you observe Mr. O'Keefe's injuries when he arrived at the hospital that morning?
I guess you'd have to define what observed injuries mean.
So I'll slow it down a little because she does talk a little bit quickly. And this is an important kind of ending to her cross. Did you observe Mr. O'Keefe's injuries the night he showed up at the hospital?
Well, during the course of your treatment, did you inspect him for injuries?
So Yes.
You testified that you observed certain abrasions and scratches on his right arm, correct?
Yes.
Aside from his injuries to his right arm, and I believe you described sort of laceration above his eye, John O'Keefe did not have a single other injury on his body from the neck down, correct?
I don't know if that's fair to say.
Well, you didn't report a single injury to his shoulders, correct?
Correct.
You did not report a single injury to his chest, correct?
Correct.
You did not report a single injury to his torso, correct?
Correct.
You did not report a single injury to his back, correct?
Correct.
You also did not report a single injury to his ribs, correct?
Correct.
No injury to his hips, right?
Correct.
You observed no injury to his knees, correct?
I reported no injuries to his knees. Correct.
No injuries to his shins, correct?
Correct.
No injuries to his ankles, right?
Correct.
And no injuries to his feet.
Correct.
From the neck down, he did not have a single broken bone, right?
I don't know if that's a fair assessment or statement.
You certainly didn't notate in your report that he had any broken bones from the neck down, correct?
No, I did not. I'd happy to explain that, but to answer your question, no, I did not.
You did not report a single fracture from the neck down, correct?
I did not report a single fracture. Correct.
The injuries that you testified to today were that he had sort of a laceration above his eyelid, correct?
The injuries that I testified to today, correct, yes.
And the scratches on his right arm.
On the right forearm, yes.
No further questions.
Okay, Mr. Lally?
I felt like that was a pretty effective cross, personally. Didn't have any injuries below the neck. And basically he just had laceration here, scratches on his arm. Doesn't seem like you got hit by a car. You could, but I do feel like, again, he gave Lally kind of a hint there, like about the broken bones. He's like, make sure you ask me about that, Lally, because I'd like to explain it. People are saying I wouldn't want that. Doctor doesn't seem bright. That's fine. I get it. He doesn't want to be there. I don't think he seems like a dumb person. I probably wouldn't say it even if I did think it. But Lorraine, yes, they should be prepared. He should review his notes. I would ask them to. What I usually say to doctors, right, especially some that don't want to be involved, I'm like, hey, man, you're going to be there. You're going to be in front of a jury. They're all going to hear your name. They're all going to hear your credentials. They all live in this community where you practice medicine. Like, just review your notes so they don't think that you're like rude or incompetent or unorganized or unprepared. That's not good for just your reputation. Let's keep your reputation up. We don't want to do anything to hurt it. So sometimes I'll tell that to doctors that are not experts that just happen to be at the ER the day my client shows up. And I would have said the same thing to him if I was the Commonwealth. You're not going to make or break the case for us, but just be prepared. Read your report so you know how to answer questions. So the jury likes you. Then it's up to the witness to do what he wants to do or she wants to do.
Dr. Rice, with reference to fractures or broken bones, can you explain sort of why that may not have been noted or why that wasn't included within the chart?
Sure, yeah, I'd like to. So with a patient like Mr. O'Keefe who came in, the focus of myself and the team of physician assistant, nurse practitioner, and nurses, whoever was helping in a case like this, the focus is in core resuscitative medicine, of securing an airway, making sure he has a breathing tube in, making sure that the CPR is being applied the right pressure to the right place, making sure that the core resuscitative elements of medicine are happening, unless as in the mind can only focus on so much. So I think in cases like this, because the attention is on resuscitation of someone's heartbeat, their life, there's less focus on injuries or observations that don't coincide with the resuscitation effort or not pertinent to that resuscitative effort, if that answers your question.
So in that vein,
So what I would say is, I agree that generally they're not like x-raying your whole body to see if you have like a broken toe or a broken foot or something. But if there was like major internal bleeding or a cracked skull or a broken neck or a broken vertebrae, that maybe not a broken vertebrae like in your lumbar spine, they probably wouldn't really care about that in his situation. But he is right that generally speaking, they're worried about life-saving measures, major organs, things like that. Not necessarily if he broke a bone. But if his arm was, snapped in half or something, obviously that would have been notated. Anything visibly obvious would have been noted.
And it's not like you're doing x-rays or a full skeletal survey or something like that.
No, we're not doing a full skeletal survey. No.
Because you're more concerned with the
He's
fact
looking at his report, to me, looking like, I need to confirm this. I hope I'm not wrong about this. But usually I guess they would not.
that his body core temperature is 80, his heart isn't pumping blood, and he's pulsing, correct?
Correct. Unless there was an extremity injury that would be pertinent to his resuscitation. If he had had a traumatic amputation, as in removal of a leg, for example, that would be pertinent to a resuscitation. But an otherwise intact extremity, that is not necessarily within the realm of resuscitation.
Can I approach the witness?
Yes.
It would have been secondary. David, I agree with your comment.
I'm going to direct your attention on document it's discharge and clinical impression. If you could just read from that, look up when you finish. Read to yourself. Clinical impression of Mr. O'Keefe. Can you read sort of what you
What is your clinical impression of Mr. O'Keefe? That's his question here.
Sure, right. So I wrote clinical impression, cardiac arrest, head trauma, exposure to environmental cold.
can I approach this retriever?
Yes.
So it was cardiac arrest, head trauma, exposure to cold. That was his clinical impression. There's got to be more experts coming.
No further questions.
Anything further, Ms. Little?
No further questions.
All right, thank you, Dr. You are all set.
Thanks.
All right. So that was it for part one. The next couple witnesses focus on the last witnesses, some video evidence and IT stuff, which we'll get to. But the big chunk is going to be on the blood alcohol content, the retrograde extrapolation. We're going to get into all that tomorrow, 1:30 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you guys like this video. We got 13,000 in the chat. Make sure you subscribe. I'm going to answer some questions now, but we are going to hit part two tomorrow and dig in so we can take our time and not have to rush it in the next 15 or 20 minutes. We'll take a whole other hour tomorrow to dig into that. Aaron Chappell was watching you and Dad discuss the USDA letters. What were the letters about? The disposal of the phone in federal dumpster or handling the case investigation? So I don't have them in front of me. It was a long time ago and a lot's happened since then. I think it was the investigation. And then I think there were parts that we don't know exactly where the investigation went. So I think there's still some to be determined there. D, even if there isn't any evidence presented, I don't think this judge will rule for a directed verdict. Yeah, no way. I don't think she's going to rule for a directed verdict or a judgment of acquittal on these charges. I think she's going to let them go forward and say that the evidence viewed in the light most favorable to the Commonwealth, a reasonable juror could find Karen Reed guilty of a crime charged. If armed. If Proctor doesn't testify, what about the chain of custody? They'll have to get all the information they need to get into this trial without Proctor if they're not going to call him. So we'll see. Dr. Vicks, I'm a doctor, and the medical testimonies from today were bizarre. Retrograde alcohol testing is very unreliable and not used in a court in the UK. I've got a lot of thoughts on this. A lot of thoughts. They'll come tomorrow. Chris, you're doing great. Absolutely love your content. Where else can you be entertained and learn at the same time? Hopefully a lot of places, but I appreciate this, Chris. This is a major compliment. Patty, he works with Mike Volkanis, another MD in the emergency department who lives in Canton, is a jerk, and is buddies with the McAlberts and local law enforcement. Okay. Laura Q, was an autopsy done on John? I haven't heard anybody mention it yet. So I don't know. We'll see. Lorraine, don't the deceased go to the morgue and get x-rayed? I think in some cases they do. I don't know. I don't know the answer to this. We'll see. If it's relevant to the case, it's going to come out. That's what I always have faith in. And when people ask me to project, what's going to happen, who's going to testify, what evidence do they have? Do they have cell phones? I always don't know. If I haven't been following the case, I don't know. I don't know what they're going to present. I don't know what they have. As it's presented, we'll react to it, right? And we'll analyze it and we'll put it in the equation that is this case. Sevenita, Peter, new to your channel, welcome. Do you think Karen Reed will testify? As of right now, I would say no, because I don't think the Commonwealth has proven their case really very much at all so far. But if they get to a part where they prove it or they might have proved it and it looks pretty strong and the defense thinks they need Karen Reed to win the case, then maybe she'll testify. I don't know the answer though. Azam, Peter, off topic. Regarding Chad, what is the difference between the penalty phase and the sentencing after a guilty verdict? Thanks. Happy 364,000 subs. Yeah, everybody hit that sub. Everybody subscribe. We're still a growing channel and we love it. So on Daybell, the penalty phase is a whole separate trial. So sentencing and the penalty phase is kind of the same thing, but sentencing usually the judge decides, lawyers make arguments, they can present certain evidence or letters and things like that, mitigating and aggravating factors, but the judge determines it. The sentencing phase trial or the penalty phase trial is an entire trial before a jury that determines whether he'll get life in prison or the death penalty. And that's what's going to come next in Chad Daybell if he's convicted. My only concern with the ER doctor didn't know what is the temperature is to be considered hypertonic. Okay. Wafa, Peter, are you going to cover the BK trial? There was a recent trial. I think you mean hearing, and it was one witness that's going to be part of a larger hearing. So I think I'm going to wait to cover the whole thing during the larger hearing. Lacretia, Doc says he's dead. You don't examine for cause. Depends. And sometimes the cause and manner of death or how somebody died or what the injuries are can help give a reason or way or cause of how the death happened. Sometimes doctors will try to do this or talk to a family about it too, just to comfort the family or give them some answers, but not always. I get what you're saying. John, I've been busy working, John. What are you doing that for, man? We're hanging out. It's tough for anyone to follow 4+ weeks daily. Don't I get that, brother? What are you feeling after today's breakdown? Brother. Yes, brother. What's up, brother? I'm feeling an extremely biased opinion from the keyboard warriors. The internet is ridiculous. So what I think is, I got hammered on my tweet. It's so funny. Any tweet gets just destroyed by everybody on both sides. My tweet was purely about how a 9 a.m. blood alcohol content doesn't tell me anything about what happened at 12:45 without a million other things. And of course, people are like, when are you going to get it? She was drunk, or why are you even considering any of the evidence the Commonwealth presents? It's like, that's not even what I was saying, guys. So more of a deep dive on that tomorrow, John. Hopefully you can come and hang with us. Benny T. Recross could have said, despite focusing on trying to perform CPR, O'Keefe's chest would have been exposed for AED, so injuries above the waist would be noticed. Certain major ones, yes. And I think she got the point across that none of them were notated, and if it would have been obvious visually, they would have been noted. Donna, ER experience for 25 years. Patients aren't dead until they're warm and dead. When hypothermia is suspected, we interact with police often. Yeah, and I think it depends on the case. It depends on the traumatic way somebody comes in, if there's family around. I think there's a lot of different elements and context to it. Joe and Amy Smith and all the other new members today, welcome. I appreciate you guys. I'm happy you're here. Go check out the last members only video. Azam mentioned it in some of her comments. It was pretty funny. But we try to do a lot of fun stuff for our members. We appreciate the support for the channel and everybody that subscribes and asks questions and leaves comments. I love it. It's literally the most interesting and entertaining place on YouTube for me. So I appreciate you guys so much. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the stream. Hit that like button if you haven't already. But until next time, which is tomorrow. So join us back tomorrow. But for now, I'm out of here. Thanks for watching another episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the thumbs up and share with your friends who may be interested here on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. And don't forget to check out the Lawyer You Know podcast with new seasons dropping every quarter. If you have a case you want to talk to us about, if it's a personal injury case, wrongful death, catastrophic injury, car accident, or slip and fall case, please email us at lawyeryouknow@gmail.com. And of course, all these links I just mentioned are included in the description below on this episode and every episode. So until next time, this is Peter Tragos, The Lawyer You Know.